Hey everyone. Today's lesson we're going to take a look at function notation and specifically the operation of multiplying with function notation. Okay, so here we have two functions and we're asked to evaluate them for two different types of multiplication operations. So the first one we have f times g with an input of 1, and the second one we have f of 2 times g of negative 1. So we discussed this in the prior video when it pertained to addition. It's the same rule here, so we're going to separate these. I'm going to look for f of 1, and I'm going to look for g of 1, and then in the end we are going to multiply our two solutions. Okay, so f of 1, I would plug in 1, we'd get 1 squared plus 2 times 1 minus 1. Okay, so that represents my f of 1, and then my g of 1 would be negative 2 times 1 plus the absolute value of 1. Okay, so here we get 1 plus 2 minus 1. That gives me 3 minus 1, which is 2 on the left side. And then on the right, we get negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. Okay, so we have our two solutions. We now need to multiply them together. 2 times negative 1 is going to give me negative 2. All right, now on the other side, we have them separated because we have two different inputs. So we'll find f of 2 first, then we'll find g of negative 1, and then we will multiply our two solutions. Okay, so f of 2, we have 2 squared plus 2 times 2 minus 1. And then we also have negative 2 times negative 1 plus the absolute value of negative 1. Okay, so here's 4 minus 1. This is 2 plus 1. Okay, so 8 minus 1, that's going to give us 7. And then 2 plus 1 is going to give us 3. We have our two solutions. We found f of 2. We found g of negative 1. We are now going to multiply them together. 7 times 3 is going to give us 21. And that is my final answer. Okay, so similar to the addition and subtraction video, you are just finding each value of input and you are getting your output after your operation. All right, so here we're going to take a look at the opposite operation, division. Okay, so we have f of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 1 and negative 2x plus the absolute value of x. We're still using the same functions here. So the first one, we have f of 2 and g of 2. So we could actually rewrite this as f of 2 over g of 2. So we're going to have to look for f of 2, we're going to have to look for g of 2, and then we are going to divide once we get our two values. Okay, so f of 2, we got 2 squared plus 2 times 2 minus 1. And then g of 2 is going to be negative 2 times 2 plus the absolute value of 2. Okay, so we get 4 minus 1, we get 7. Okay, here we get negative 2 plus 2, or sorry, negative 4, is what I meant to write. Negative 4 plus 2, all right, which gives me negative 2. And then I'm dividing those two answers at the end after I get my two solutions, so it would be 7 over negative 2 or negative 3.5. Either one's acceptable. Doesn't matter whether you use the fraction or the decimal. All right, and on the other side, again, we have f of negative 2 and g of 1. So we need to find our two values. We have f of negative 2 and we have g of 1. So negative 2, we plug in for our f function, negative 2 squared plus 2 times negative 2 minus 1. And g of 1 is negative 2 times 1 plus the absolute value of 1. So we're starting to run out of space a little bit there. Okay, and I have 4 plus a negative 4, or just minus 4, minus 1. Okay, 4 minus 4 is 0, minus 1, so we get negative 1 on the left side. And then we get on the right side negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. And again, you're dividing your two answers here. So we get negative 1 divided by negative 1, which gives me a positive 1 as my final answer. Okay, again, because we are dividing them or writing them as a fraction, f of x over g of x at the end. Okay, so again, very similar here. You're finding each value of your input to figure out what the outputs are, and then you are applying whichever operation it's being asked here.